Please, as I go through this, I like to have dialogue and interaction. It's a little bit more enjoyable, stimulating for everybody involved, and so please don't hesitate to jump in and ask questions. So first of all, to start out with, who is not from the state of Texas? I know one person's from Minnesota. Okay, so a few others. Well, that's nice. It's nice to get
between grad and undergrad.
Yeah.
John spoke to an undergrad class.
It's nice to get a little bit of a mixture. So I'll still tell the story. So I started my career at the University of Nebraska. I was born and raised in Nebraska, and for a long time I absolutely hated the state of Texas. And the reason is because all of the student athletes that we had at Nebraska, or some of the student athletes, or a lot of them, were from the state of Texas. And all I heard about for years and years and years was how great Texas was, and don't mess with Texas and all this nonsense. And so later on in my career, I had an opportunity to go to SMU, and I was at SMU for a while. My wife and I was. And it took me about 2 weeks to realize that this is a pretty good place. And I will go on record and say it's the best state in the union. I love the state of Texas. It's a great place, and I'm happy to be here, and I appreciate Dr. Greenwood inviting me to come. So I'm going to go a little bit today, kind of, Dr. Greenwood kind of gave me an outline to follow, and talk a little bit about my career path and some, I guess, lessons I've learned along the way through a lot of mistakes, and hopefully be able to help you avoid some mistakes and learn some lessons, and then kind of talk a little bit about strength conditioning and sports sciences and some of the changes and kind of where we are today. So as I mentioned, I started my career at the University of Nebraska. I had an opportunity to be there for 7 years. How many are former athletes in the class, or maybe still athletes? Okay. So I was an athlete in high school, and when you grow up in the state of Nebraska, you're kind of brainwashed that there's no other place to go to college. So I attended the University of Nebraska and was not talented enough as an athlete to compete at that level, or a Texas A&M level, and so kind of gave up my athletic career and had an idea that I was going to go into physical therapy. And after 1 year, I realized that I really missed being involved in athletics and in a competitive environment and that type of thing. And coincidentally, I read a newspaper article that one of Nebraska's strength coaches left and went to Notre Dame as their head strength coach. And I was like, that's what I want to do. So Boyd Epley, some of you may know that name. He's was kind of the godfather or the pioneer in strength conditioning. Was the head strength coach at the University of Nebraska at the time, and I kind of reached out to him and was a squeaky wheel, and he interviewed me and said, I need you to come back on such and such date. So I came back, and there was another kid there, another college student, and I thought this is kind of strange. So he called both of us into his office, and he said, I'm going to hire both of you to volunteer. And I was like, that's kind of a contradiction in terms, right? I mean, you get hired, you get paid, you volunteer, you don't. So he proceeded to say, after one semester, one of you will be asked to leave and the other one will start getting paid. And the other guy and I looked at each other and we're like, this really sucks. This is a bad situation here. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to stay, and like I said, was at Nebraska for 7 years, and was an incredible opportunity, and was a place that I met a lot of great people, was around some great leaders, and learned a lot, and was really a launch pad for my career. From there, I had an opportunity to go to Holy Cross, and for those of you who do not know, Holy Cross is in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is about an hour west of Boston, and was a huge culture shock for my wife and I, who's from Costa Rica. So we got married and went to my first head job, and so it was a huge, not only geographically, but you went from a school that had a huge amount of resources to a school that had very few resources from an athletic standpoint. And looking back on it was an incredible opportunity for me, because it forced me to become a better strength coach, become more creative, to learn how to work without resources, being shorthanded, and it just made me a better strength coach. And I made a lot of mistakes in that environment, and another reason it was a great place for me to go is because I made mistakes, but nobody knew. Whereas if you I never realized it at the time, but if you get too big a job too soon and you make those mistakes on a big platform, you can ruin your career. So again, I was very fortunate to be there for 2 years and to learn a lot and grow a lot, and again be exposed to a lot of other people in a completely other part of the United States. Mike Boyle, who's very well known, got an opportunity to know him and work with him, and Johnny Parker, who was the strength coach for the Patriots at the time, and kind of expand my network, and then had an opportunity to go to SMU, and which was kind of coincidentally halfway in between a Holy Cross and an A&M or Nebraska or Florida State, and was a really good experience for me for the first time to have a staff and to have people hire assistants, train assistants. Unfortunately, was in a situation where I had to fire somebody, and so I learned a lot from an administrative standpoint at SMU, and then was really fortunate to have a dream, kind of a dream come true happen, and was called and was asked if I was interested in the position at Florida State, and was brought in Florida State to work primarily with football. Was hired by Coach Bowden, and had an incredible experience there. And in 2008, Coach Bowden was kind of being pushed out the door, and they decided to hire a head coach in waiting, which was probably not the best idea. I think that also failed at Texas, if I'm not mistaken. And so at that time, Jimbo was brought in and was given the opportunity to hire his own strength coach. And so I was kind of in a unique situation, and was shown the door and then brought back in, and I'm probably the only person that has been fired and hired in the matter of about 3 months in the same institution. And so it was quite a unique experience. And so now I'm the director of strength conditioning, oversee the department, and also am very involved with the sports sciences, helped start the graduate level sports sciences, which is specifically for sports medicine people and strength conditioning people that want to have a career in those two fields, with the idea that it's important for those two disciplines to be and work very closely together. So that's kind of my career path. Now I'll kind of dive into kind of some, I guess, lessons learned along the way, or some recommendations that I would make, or some things that may help you. A lot of them are, I'll say, kind of life lessons that maybe are some common sense, but I think what I've learned is common sense isn't so common anymore. And then I'll get into some more specific science or strength conditioning things. So one of the things that I think that all of you are doing right now is preparing, general preparation, right? And one thing that I would encourage you to do is to commit right now to being a lifelong learner, to continuing to make it a point to read. A lot of people get out of school and they're like, I'm so sick of reading, I never want to read again. Continue to read, and read not only what's in your field, what's in your career path, what's in exercise science, but also what's outside of it. You need to expose yourself to a lot of things. I would say that everybody in here, in some capacity, is a leader and is going to be even more of a leader. So you need to read leadership books. You need to read books by coaches. I think the Essentials text is a great place to start, but it's just a beginning. You need to expose yourself to a lot of other things. I have listed there SIF and Stone and Boppa and Kramer and a lot of other things in exercise science, but also, as I show there, you can learn an awful lot from a CEO or a Maxwell or a coach, and I think that that's something that's really, really important that can carry over in life in a lot of other areas. I'm a giant John Wooden fan. There's a text, a book that's just called Wooden. It's blue and has yellow text on the outside, on the cover, and it's a book that every page wisdom just kind of comes out. And I highly recommend regardless of what you're going to go into. So, and the next thing is networking, and this is something that I think probably everybody kind of talks about and knows about, and it's something that's really, really important. How many people here are interested in? I think a lot of people are interested in applied science, but coaching or strength and conditioning at the collegiate level, professional level, maybe in the armed forces, something like that. Anybody? Okay, so 4 or 5 people. So in the collegiate setting, when I go to, well, if I have a position that comes open and I'm going to look to make a hire, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call people that I know, that I trust, that I have previous experience or relationship with, and I'm going to say, okay, Dr. Greenwood, here's what I'm looking for. Is there anybody you could recommend? I'm going to call my colleagues, the strength coaches that I have known through just being in the profession for the last 25 years. And through that network of people, I'm going to develop a short list. And then I'm going to advertise the position, and then I'm going to get about 500 people that are going to apply for that job. And not that I'm going to look outside of that network, but those people definitely have a huge advantage. So I would like to tell you that it's different in other career paths, but it's not much. That's kind of the way the world goes, and I'm not going to suggest that it's right, but that's just the way that it is. And so I really, really encourage you to find whatever avenue you want to take, to get involved with it now. If you want to be a physical therapist, if you're not already, even if you're crazy busy as a doctoral student and you only have 4 hours to sleep, you need to go to a physical therapy clinic and say, I'd like to volunteer. I'd like to help clean. I'd like to help do this. I'd like to be in this environment, because those people are going to be able to help you when you get your PhD, when you graduate, when you're looking for your first job, when you're looking to move on. It's really, really important. And, not that I think that it needs to be genuine. It needs to be sincere, that you want to get involved and you want to help. And then, I think the best way to get a new job is to do an unbelievable job in the position that you're at, whether it's volunteering, whether it's as a student, whether it's in research, and then those people will help become your network, then help you grow. Moving on. So, question. I know grad students and doctoral students, correct? In everybody? So, is there anybody that is working or volunteering or doing something outside of going to school and research and working on your dissertation or that? Is there anything that, one person, two, three? Everybody else is pretty much fully engaged in academics. Is that right? Fair? I would highly recommend that you, as busy as you are, and I know you're crazy busy, again, figure out whatever that career path is going to be and get involved in that path. And here's one reason why. You're probably, no matter where it is or when it is, you're going to start out as a volunteer. In college athletics, whether it's at A&M or Florida State or wherever it is, almost everybody in the athletic department started out as a volunteer. I started out as a volunteer. Most of my assistants started out as volunteers. I know two of my assistants, one of them is through Dr. Green, went through Dr. Greenwood's program. Another one was an assistant and is now at Oklahoma, started out as volunteers. So if that's where your starting point's going to be, which again, may not want to hear it, but it's the reality, you might as well start that as soon as possible, right? And get it out of the way. And let that lead to something else. So get your foot in the door. I cannot, and cannot express that enough. Getting the experience and getting the network. And maybe it's like, you know, I don't know what it could be. Maybe it is in some kind of a community service. But I cannot express how important that is. Okay, so again, I mentioned that you know, everybody in here is a leader and is going to become more of a leader, and that's one of those things that can kind of be scary and that most people are uncomfortable with. So if I were to ask who is, by show of hands, is comfortable saying, I'm a leader, I'm a good leader, and I want to lead people. So that's not uncommon. I mean, a lot of people are very uncomfortable with that. And so, but it doesn't have to be a type of thing where you're moving mountains or changing the world. It can be something very simple, and it can start by you leading by an example. Probably everybody has somebody that they're mentoring or they're leading in some way, shape, or form. And it could be a kid down the street. It could be one of the students that's working for you. It could be somebody that is in a class that you're teaching. And the best way to start as a leader is to lead by example. And you know, somebody told me once that you can't expect your athletes to outwork you. Well, whoever your athletes are, your students are, your followers are, you can't expect them to outwork you. So I think that's one way you can start being comfortable as a leader. And I guess the second thing is everybody in this room, my guess is everybody wants to be a professional. And so if you want to be a professional, be professional in the way that you act, things that you say, when you send an email, the way that you present yourself, because again, those people are going to become your network and somebody that can help you grow. It's something that I didn't realize for a long time, but I really believe that everybody that you come in contact with, to a certain degree, can either really help you grow and enrich your career and help you take your next step, or can hurt you. And so, initiative. This is my staff and probably the classes that I teach get sick and tired of me. I love this word. I love the word initiative. And a big part of it came from Coach Bowden. And we used to, when I was part of the staff, we started each day with a devotional. And we kind of took turns starting with something other than football, starting with something more important with football. And one day when it was his turn, he talked about initiative. And he said there are 3 different types of people. And one person is, they're going to walk down the hallway. You're going to see a piece of garbage or a piece of trash on the floor. Could be a piece of paper. Obviously, it doesn't belong there. And the first type person is going to walk past it and won't even notice the paper on the floor. And the next person is going to walk by and they're going to notice it, but it's not their paper. Somebody else picked it up, or dropped it. Somebody else can pick it up. It's not their job to pick it up. And the third person is going to see it, pick it up, and throw it in the trash bin. And he said, that's the type of person I want to hire. That's the type of people I want on my staff. And it really kind of rang true to me, and I think there's a lot of truth in it, and that's the type of people that I want to hire. And I would suggest that you can separate yourself from a lot of people by taking a really strong initiative. Every semester, I have people banging down my door, sending me emails that want to volunteer and want to be an intern and be a practicum student. It's a pretty good initiative, right? Taking that first step. And so it's amazing to me how many people come in and I see this, hands in the pockets, and they'll see a weight on the floor, a belt that needs to be picked up, a whole host of things that it doesn't take rocket science to figure out that it's not the proper place for a weight to be laying on the floor, or something that needs to be cleaned, or maybe towels that need to be folded. I mean, it could be a long list of things. They don't have the initiative to do it. And other people come in and they're just workers. They're ready to find stuff to do. So I really encourage you to have a strong initiative. Work ethic, again, something that common sense, there's no substitute for. And I said that probably the best way to get a job is to move up or get your next job is to do a great job in the position that you're in. And I think that it can be a little bit more than that too, and that is another Coach Bowden story. He said, if you are doing for someone else what they should do for themselves, you're paying them a disservice. So he was all about teaching, or kind of give the fish, or teach them to fish type of an attitude rather than give them a fish. And if an athlete, they need to be able to put their own weight on the bar. They need to be able to add up their weight. They need to be able to do for themselves. And so not only work hard for yourself, but kind of the lesson in that is work hard in helping teach others and serve others. To me is part of that work ethic. Again, another life lesson, being punctual, being on time. And I probably have a little bit of an advantage of this area because of what was instilled in me by my parents. But somebody told me once, by not being punctual, especially in a professional setting, when you have an assignment due, when you have something that, a deadline that you need to meet, and by not meeting that, what are you saying to others? And one thing that you're saying is that you have a huge ego, and that my time is more valuable than yours. If we have something that is scheduled at 2 o'clock, then and you stroll in at 2:15, you're outwardly saying my time is more important than yours, that I have a big ego. You're also, or you're saying that you have really poor interpersonal skills, that you're not organized enough, or you can't tell time to be there at the appropriate time. Or you're saying that you just don't care, not important. Pretty loud, blatant messages that you're sending, right? So I think that's something that if you want to be a professional, that's really, really important. With all of our athletes, we have there's reasons and there are excuses. Excuses are not accepted. Obviously, there are things that happen. And that's where you be professional and you make a telephone call or send a text and, I apologize, this and this happened and I'm not going to be able to make it. Or this came up and I apologize, but it takes priority right now. A lot better than strolling in late. So, enthusiasm. An awful lot can be overcome with enthusiasm. And the interesting thing is, with all of the people that you interact with through the day, you are going to either be a positive or a negative influence on them. And both are extremely contagious. And so I think that you can make a huge impact by consciously making a decision that you're going to be positive and you're going to be enthusiastic. And it's amazing, by just making that conscious decision, the way that things can start to go in your favor. So try it. I strongly encourage it. Competition. A couple people mentioned that they were athletes here or former athletes. And the interesting thing about competition is obviously strength conditioning is extremely competitive just by nature of it being in athletics. But I would say that no matter what you're going to go into, it is unbelievably competitive. It's the way that the world is now. And probably whatever job you're going to go apply for, there are going to be 50 other people applying for that same job, maybe 500 people. And if that's not competitive, I don't know what is. And so I would encourage you right now to start embracing that competition and compete with yourself and figure out a way to make yourself better on a daily basis. And when you can embrace that and you get comfortable competing with yourself and being competitive, it can give you a big advantage when you get in that environment and you are competing for that job. That's a lot of people that don't like competition, and I would say that definitely in athletics, if you don't like competition, you better not get into collegiate athletics and be a strength conditioning coach. But I would take it one step further. I would say that you're going to have a rude awakening. It's going to be a long road to hoe. Patience and perseverance. This is one of those things that I think is a really, really difficult balance. And, you guys already know, entering into grad school and then going in, some of you going on with your PhD, it's a marathon. It's a long road. It's a long road being broke. It's a long road putting in ridiculous hours and paying your dues and trying to pound down the door and take that next step. And somehow you have to find that balance between being patient and also persevering at the same time. And a lot of times, I've had graduate assistants that have completed got a master's degree and continued or completed their 2 years at a Florida State as a graduate assistant, and they haven't found, either they haven't gotten a full-time position or they haven't found the right fit, and they have to make a decision, okay, maybe I need to go be a GA again, or I need to volunteer again, and that can be really difficult. But if you know what you want to go into and you're comfortable and confident with the career path, and that's something that you love, then it's definitely worth being patient for and making those sacrifices, and at the same time, the perseverance will pay off. But I understand, and you have to almost embrace again that it's going to be a marathon. Being humble is one of those things that I think to to be a really good athlete, you have to be really confident, right? And I would say the same would be for a professor. To get in front of people, I mean, you better have a little bit of confidence. To be a really, really good researcher, to be a really good publisher, to be really good applying, there better be some confidence there. But there's a fine line between being confident, cocky, and conceited. And where that is, I'm not quite exactly sure, but I think somewhere in line there, being humble is really, really important. And at least for me, when I pull up a list of criteria when I'm looking to hire someone, which I have a list, and I continue to look through every time I have a vacancy. You know, there's probably 5 or 6 things before it is strength and conditioning related or science related. And it's character, integrity, trustworthy. Is this person going to represent me well, represent the strength and conditioning department well, represent Florida State well, etc. And at the end of the day, is the person enjoyable to be around? Is it somebody that you can work hard with, trust, believe in, have fun, and enjoy being around? Because as sad as it is, the people that you work beside, you're probably going to spend more time with than you do with your spouse, than you do with your family. So I want to make sure that the people that I hire, you enjoy being around. And the person that is not humble, at least I have a hard time being around. I think that, and you're going to learn that it's not about you. And it's something that for a long time ago was a really good lesson to me. And caring. Caring is one of those things that if you really truly care, it kind of makes up for everything. And if you don't really care about whatever it is you're doing, you're not really truly invested, then I encourage you to hit the eject button and go do something else and find what you really, really, truly care about. Because when you really, truly care, then it's easy. You're going to show up on time, and you're going to be really invested, and you're going to work hard because you care, right? I mean, again, everything takes care of itself. And what happens is when you get a lot of people that really care together about the same thing, and that's when really special things happen. And I'm fortunate that we have an athletic department where I really believe there are a lot of people that really care about the student athletes and about our goals and objectives as an athletic department. And I can say the same thing about Texas A&M's athletic department, and very few people probably realize this, but in, I'll say 2009 and 10 and 10 and 11, there were 2 athletic departments in the nation that had every single team compete in postseason play. Florida State, Texas A&M. It was the first time in the history of the NCAA that it happened. And again, very few people know that. But I'll kind of brag on us and brag on Texas A&M a little bit. And it all comes down to people, because you can bring in great athletes and you can have a lot of resources, but if you don't have the right people and people that really care, you're not going to accomplish those types of things. So I talked a little bit about leadership, and I would encourage you again to read and try to follow people and have people that of great character that are your mentors. And one of the classes that I teach over the summer, I had a guest speaker that came in and that kind of is a leadership, a motivational speaker. And one of the things that he said is that money and power are multipliers. And if you are a giving person, and when you get to a position where you have power and you're financially better off, it's going to multiply that, and you're going to give more. You're going to be more generous. And if you're greedy, you're going to become more greedy when you get in that position. If you're arrogant, you're going to become more arrogant. If you're somebody that's really caring and serves others and gives to others, then you're going to be more that way inclined. And there are a lot of people that get to a really high level without character and integrity. But if you take a look at, it's pretty easy looking in the media, what happens to those people is they don't last. They don't stand the test of time. And, whether it be something like, Tiger Woods or Joe Paterno, I mean, you can look at CEOs, Enron, things like that, crumbles because of lack of character and integrity. And it ends up hurting a lot of other people. And if you can learn to develop that character and integrity now, as you grow, that's what's going to be multiplied. And so along the way, not only will you last and stand the test of time, but you can make the world a better place. So again, I would encourage you to study and look at people of character and integrity to follow. Golden rule, this is one of those things that I think probably stands the test of time better than anything else, and that is, treat others the way that you want to be treated. And, if you think about who you want to be around now, who you enjoy interacting with, that's probably very true. And again, when you get in a position where you are of strong influence, I think it's really important to remember that those people that you work with, that they're treated with respect and dignity, and that the way that you treat people is an investment and something that's really, really important. Okay, so kind of changing gears here and maybe getting a little bit more into, how are we doing on time?
Yeah, great amount of time. You're doing fine.
Okay. Getting into a little bit more strength conditioning, a little bit more sports sciences, is Dr. Greenwood asked me to kind of talk a little bit about research and where that fits into our philosophy and as a strength conditioning department. And I think that it's something that is absolutely critical and something that was really instilled in me when I was at the University of Nebraska, and is that our program was based on principles. And through those principles, we kind of developed a philosophy. And those principles were, or are, I guess, building blocks by which we develop our program, and things that we're going to hang our hat on. And so that when you go to a conference and you see some new cutting edge thing, or a coach says, hey, I saw this at Texas A&M, we need to do it here. You can go back and say, okay, does this fit our principles that, again, are based on science? And, for us, we're going to do ground-based activities because sport is played with your feet on the ground. And there is a order or pattern of muscle contractions that happen from the ground up in pretty much every athletic movement there is. And so we're going to train so that we can develop those neuromuscular patterns. We're going to train with multiple joint actions. And so all of these, we're going to follow principles that are founded and based in science. So I think that it's important that you know why. Why are you doing the things that you're doing? And whether it is a coach that comes in and says, they want to start doing a CrossFit program to something else, it's really important to understand the science behind what you're doing and the research that backs that up. So the interesting thing about strength conditioning is that you kind of have two sides, right? I mean, on one side you have research, and on the other side you have the coach. In some instances, coach might not know anything about research, and hopefully there's some interaction or some combination that makes a nice balance between the two, which I think is really, really important, because everybody has probably a grandmother or a mother that's a really good cook, and they hand that recipe down to, maybe your mom or you. I know, like for me, I had a grandmother that was an unbelievable cook, and she gave a lot of recipes to my mom. My mom's a good cook too, but whenever she made those same recipes, it just weren't quite the same, right? And so you're not able to remove the person stirring the pot from the recipe, what's in the pot. And it's very, very true in applied sciences. You are very, very important as the person that's applying the science, as the coach, as the physical therapist. An absolute critical ingredient. And again, science is going to show us that, or research is going to show us that certain things are going to bring on or solicit a certain response. If you do a certain volume, you're going to have hypertrophy. If you do some explosive or plyometric exercises, it's going to excite the central nervous system, and you're going to have more efficient recruitment, so on and so forth. But there has to be, what I will say, the art of how is that applied. Because I've seen some pretty crummy programs that if you would take and say, okay, Dr. Green would look this over and let me know what you think about it, or if I would look at it and you're like, man, I don't know how the heck this is going to work. And you see people that make some pretty good results from it because you have pretty dynamic, really good, inspiring, motivational coach. And probably working with some untrained athletes too, but that person matters. And I've also seen a really, really good, solid program. If you don't have the right person implementing it, it's probably not going to be as effective as if you had somebody that knew how to apply it, a different cook stirring that pot. And I think that that's something that is really, really important, because I've seen both sides, and for the optimum program, you need somebody that has both. And so for those of you that are, there are very few strength coaches that have a PhD. I'm really fortunate to have one on my staff. Years and years, that's one of the things I think that has changed in strength conditioning through the years is when I got involved in strength conditioning, if you could teach somebody to squat and clean, you could probably be a strength coach. And there's still some of that out there, but it is changing, and it's changing rapidly. And I think that the cream will rise to the top. And now I know that there are several strength coaches in the NFL that are really, really good and have a great science background. And it used to be years ago where it was probably people that could scream and yell and teach people to squat and clean. So it is changing. Technology, to me, is one of the things that has changed the most in the last 5 years, is really becoming a game changer in strength conditioning. At Florida State, at every single rack, it's apparent, or when you walk in the weight room, it's it's apparent at every single rack we have an iPad. And an athlete goes up to the rack and they select, they're a football player, they're a linebacker, there's their name, and there's their program. They're able to make changes right there. We auto-regulate. It'll sync back up to the computer. That's just one example. There are a lot of software out there for handling data management. You can get all kinds of things on your phone, all kinds of apps. I mean, I have one that checks my heart rate, one that'll check your stress level, that you can do some really neat things with your athletes. And I know that they do some neat things here at A&M. I'm missing a. We have, for more of an on the field applied part, there's some unbelievable stuff with video. You can get what's called Coach's Eye on your iPhone, and you can do some really cool things with that. I think it's like 99 cents. With our soccer team, we use a Polar Team 2 system, so we have a heart rate system on every one of our athletes during the game, during practice, during anything they do, and have a coach on the sidelines with a computer that is able to monitor them live and actually will make recommendations for substitutions if if an athlete's not recovering or whatever the case. With our football team, every one of our players, or I don't say every one, but I'll say we have 80 GPS catapult systems. It's built into the shoulder pads, and we can see how far an athlete goes during a game, how many times they accelerate, the rate that they accelerate, meters per second, their deceleration, their change of direction, a collision, and it will give us a total amount of workload at the end of a game. I mean, it's phenomenal, and it's almost okay. You can measure about anything. Bar velocity, there's some GymAware and Tendo units that measure bar velocity when you're interested in power. And it's almost like, okay, how do you handle all this data? What do you do with this? How do you interpret it? How do you evaluate it? How do you apply it? So to me, technology is really what's changing this field, and it is really exciting. And most of it is well over my head. That's why I hire young people like you that are tech savvy and have come through programs like this that are familiar with all of the latest technology. So, and then just a little bit about my staff. We're really fortunate where we have 5 strength coaches that work just with football. Chris Jacobs used to work for NASA, and now all he does is handle the catapult system. So that's kind of the way that it's changing. There's something similar for the Philadelphia Eagles with the Giants, a few other places in the NFL. And then on the Olympic side, each one of my assistants generally works with 2 teams. So, and you can see which teams they work with there. That's kind of it in a nutshell. That's my life in a nutshell. So I think I answered some of your questions, but would definitely like to open it up for questions for anything that I didn't answer. Please.
In your role as Director of Strength and Speed, what's your interaction like with the exercise science department in your profession?
Okay. For me at Florida State, it's probably greater than a lot of my colleagues, simply because, unfortunately, I don't know why this is, but a lot of places, I'll say most places, there's not a great relationship between academics and athletics. And I've always thought that that's ridiculous, that it's important, that it can be a win-win situation. So for a long time, I tried to cultivate those relationships, and I reached out to the sports sciences department and actually helped start the sports sciences program. So I teach 2 classes in it. We're getting ready to embark on some research that will include some of our student athletes, which I think is really exciting because there's very little research with Division I elite athletes. So some wanting to do more, but not a lot. But the relationships are there, and I'm on the advisory board for the Institute of Sports Science and Medicine, which is at Florida State. So it is important. It's important for our athletic department. So, but it's whichever side you're on, whether you're in academics or you're in the applied part. For those of you who are going into that, I strongly encourage you to reach across and try to cultivate those relationships, because ultimately, I think, from a research standpoint, hopefully it gets applied. What good is it if it's not applied? And from the performance side, you're not going to be able to be as good as you can be if you don't apply, if you don't reach out and learn and be able to learn what you can apply. So I think it's really important. I did enjoy being here. It's a great place.